Good morning, Revolution, everybody, and welcome to our show this morning. We have some guests. Welcome, Eric, and welcome, John Case. We're so happy you were able to join us. Rosanna is in the Far East in China, where she's due back next week. She'll have an interesting story to tell, I'm sure. We're looking forward to hearing all about it. Some kind of international seminar, a number of different parties, theoretical seminars, they put it, the Chinese comrades, on the world economy. So we're anxious to hear about that. And then let's see, our good friend Scott is on vacation, but we're here. Have no fear. And we're ready to start, ready to roll. And the first thing we want to talk about is the People's World Fund Drive. Folks, we are nearing our $125,000 goal. Ain't no stopping us. We reached 117,000 at last stop, last count, the day before yesterday, and the money is still coming in. And so we want to urge you to help us get over the top. And whatever you can contribute, if it's $5, 10, 20, 50, 500, it don't matter. Go to peoplesworld.org/donate and make a contribution. And we are especially encouraging you to think about dropping a sustainer. And by sustainer, we mean making a regular monthly contribution to the PW. Some people don't have the means, or as we say in Youngstown, the ends, to contribute $100 at a drop, you know? Back in Youngstown, when you ain't got no money, you say, I ain't got no ends. But you can contribute $5 a month or $10 a month. And that adds up over the course of the year. And so we'd like to encourage you very strongly to make that contribution. This is our press. It's the workers' press. It's the people's press. It's the party's press. And we strongly encourage you to support it by your donations, by your articles, by your videos, by your circulation of its content, and so on and so forth. Next, moving on to a rather somber, sad note, we want to express our condolences to the people and the Communist Party of South Africa on the passing of a very dear comrade and friend, Comrade Chris. Comrade Chris was the first Deputy General Secretary for the South African Party. He won that position at his last Congress. He was the principal comrade responsible for the SACP's international relations, visited the United States before, was the kind of comrade who, whenever you called on him to answer a question, provide a contribution, written or video, he was ready on the spot to do it. Made no excuses, and I was shocked and saddened last night to hear about Chris's passing. And so on behalf of our party, we want to send our revolutionary condolences and solidarity to our fighting party in South Africa, to the members of the African National Congress, to the members of the trade union movement, the Congress of South African Trade Unionists, and to all South African revolutionary Democrats fighting to overcome the vestiges of apartheid. And they still got a long, long way to go. So with that, let's move the agenda. I don't know, Eric, have mercy. These shootings vigilante or police of our young people, Black African American, just continue. You had a double development this week, first in Kansas City, then you had the jury verdict, grand jury decision. I guess it wasn't a verdict in Akron. Uh, Eric, what's it going to take, man, to stop our young people from being shot and in most cases killed?
Well, I would say it would take a revolution, but I think that there are steps we can take prior to that. And the case of Ralph Yarl is particularly distressing because he was a slight young man, not big. You can see if you look at his face, he's not a scary person. And while the person who shot him twice, once while he was laying on the ground, is facing charges, he pled not guilty. And it looks like they're going to do a stand your ground kind of defense where it's okay to kill people just because they happen to be in the vicinity. And I think that we need to roll back the stand your ground laws. I think we need to fight to end the vestiges of racism and systemic racism, and we need to demand that these that people who are doing this, and it's private citizens and it's also the police. So in the case of private citizens, we need to demand that they are fully prosecuted. In the case of the police, we have to demand that there are community control boards that are overlooking the behavior, the policies, and the budgets of the police. We're looking at the gentleman who who shot Ralph Yarl twice, I believe, in this.
84 years old or something like that. She shot the young man in the head. First shot. Second shot, laying on the ground. Boom, shot him again. He went to several different neighbors. Nobody would let him in, Anita. And then when they let him in, hold your hands up. And then finally somebody assisted with towels and called an ambulance. And open season, Anita, on our young people. What's it going to take?
I don't know what it. I despair actually at this point because the proliferation of guns in conjunction with this divide, this demonization of the other is just running rampant. It seems I've spent a lot of time in Florida, and I know there would be people posting things like, these people came to my door and I don't know them, and the recommendations from their neighbors were get a gun. It's as if ringing somebody's doorbell is something that is punishable by death. We're so lucky that this young man is still alive, and the outpouring of love for him from his fellow students was really inspiring. And the pressure that was brought to bear ended up having some effect. At least the man is being charged, but just what he had to say about his fear of this young man is really disturbing. He was apparently radicalized by far right media to be in deathly fear of for his life, and I think that's the media, I think, are complicit. He's got to pay the price, though.
Yeah, young African American, Latino men are criminalized in this country. John K's criminalized, and this is nothing new. It ain't nothing new. It's been going on for 200 years. And by the way, white folks are getting killed too. And you ain't even got to knock on anybody's door. as in the
Yes.
case of the young woman that was shot in upstate. I can't tell you, John Case. I was on the highway Route 80 a couple weeks ago, made a wrong turn, got off the interstate, and decided to turn around. And I've done this dozens of times. I pull into somebody's driveway in order to make a U-turn. I ain't
Yeah.
doing that no more.
No. No.
Mm-mm.
Well, I think you can't separate the gun violence from the overall violence in society and the deterioration of society at, on many dimensions. And also, I mean, on the question of the gun, I mean, obviously the guns make it worse than it would be otherwise. But you look at the level of domestic violence, at the level of police violence, at the you look at, for example, there's an organizing drive in West Virginia right now among police because of the militarization of police departments by, in large cases, external forces pressuring them to get armored carriers and all this SWAT team training, and all the budget money goes into these tools, and the people who get hurt are the cops that end up doing all the other work, not the tactical squad. And so you get, there's a lot of problems at every level. And I think there's a classic thing, nobody disarms until the peace treaty is signed or until one side dominates completely the other. And I think, we got to think about there needs to be a peace treaty in the country, and you can't address the peace treaty, the divide in the country, without addressing the immense and vast inequalities that are growing, not getting smaller. And so I think probably all efforts at disarming, most of them are going to fail until this national peace treaty gets negotiated.
National Peace Treaty. Eric, that's an interesting concept. In South Africa, after the achievement of majority rule in the mid-90s, the ANC-led government initiated a peace and reconciliation process whereby they tried to, this was an important step in nation building. So John Case is saying that we need a step in nation building in this multinational country that we live in, because it's fraying apart at the seams. And Case is arguing that you can't take a step towards a peace treaty, or in the South African case, peace and reconciliation, without justice, without addressing inequality. What do you think? Is that the solution, Eric?
I don't think that is a bad thing to have, but we're not there yet. And I think that the primary issue right now is protecting the lives of Black, brown children, women, and men who are being killed by the state. And the and the corollary to that is to take very clear anti-racist stands publicly, because these deaths, and I think now that I don't know if this is Jalen Walker or Ralph Yarl that we're looking at right now, but these steps where young Black youth are being killed, this is not a war. This is not two sides that are at war with each other. This is one side that has all the armaments and that is slaughtering children, basically. And I think that in the larger context, we have to do things that will bring anti-racist things that will bring the country together. But before we can get anywhere near there, the killings of Black youth, Black women, Black men have to stop. There's no other way to look at this, and yeah.
But in order for it to stop, we have to be able to take measures to put
I'm sorry.
stopping, that process of stopping in place. Part of which was realized in Chicago, Anita, with the creation of what we call a police civilian accountability board that was elected. And in Chicago, much to everybody said it was impossible. It'll never happen. The FOP, the police union, the National Rifle Association, they will unite the right to, and with the center to, but it won big time. And now you have a mayor there who supports initiatives like that. So at least an initial step was taken. But John Case also has a point, you know, passing a law is one thing, enforcing it is another, but there also have to be concrete steps towards economic and social justice, no?
Absolutely. And Chicago will be an interesting case. Well, it remains to be seen. I think the people who are really sincerely concerned about community control of the police, they won, I think, the majority of the seats on this control board. But the FOP and the forces of the right wing are not stepping back and you know, playing dead. They're fighting back, and I think it's great that that we have a really good mayor in coming into Chicago who will stick up for this control board. But I think it's a constant struggle. I don't think it's over once you have this control board. I think we'll still have to push them to do the right thing, and we have to push in other cities around the country. We have a pseudo control board, police control board in Columbus, Ohio, and one of the members criticized the police on his Twitter feed and was let go, was fired out of the control board on account of that. So you really need that backing up from the mayor and from the people who are being policed by these forces.
Was fired, so the fox is controlling the chicken coop. Is that what you're trying to say?
Right.
And
Exactly.
and Columbus, fighting racism in all of its forms is central to class unity. John Case, we've been saying that a long time. And
There was
another
a
example of it was in D.C., where, check this out, the D.C. City Council did a review and correction updating of a long, antiquated criminal code, right?
right.
And the mayor voted. The council then overrode the veto.
Right.
I'm not making this up. They sent it to Congress. The Republicans in the Congress threatened to overturn the council's overriding of the veto. Now, at issue here is what they call home rule in D.C. because it's not a state. Up until recently, it was a majority black city. Now I think it's about half and half. But it's still probably majority people of color because you got a pretty substantial Latino population. And I imagine a big part of which is undocumented. In any event, Mr. Biden said he wasn't going to touch it. Then he got pressured from the right and said he wasn't going to support the home rule decision. And now, lo and behold, because of public outrage, has done another 180 and said that if the GOP passes a bill, he's going to veto it. Good for you, Mr. Biden. But John Case, it just shows the importance of, well, it shows two things: the flip and the flop under pressure,
Right.
and but the importance of the pressure.
Well, you know, it reminds me that there was a meeting sponsored by the county commission, by a group of coalition around the county commission in our county to discuss violence, police violence, and also to discuss reforms and the way the police do things. And there was a young man he's a vet, and he also was up there speaking on behalf of the NAACP. But he had the proposal, and he opened it by a very long-winded tribute to the pressures of police and other frontline security and emergency workers. And he said, but it was basically an opening that they do not have the capacity to prevent violence in the schools. They're mainly focused on the schools. And what we need is a community brigades led by vets who have been abandoned for the most part by this country, despite all the promises and sacrifices they've made, and have them be a presence at the public centers and the schools in particular, as a volunteer kind of security force. And I thought, and I want to tell you, he got a rousing, cheers, even though the police forces that were present were quite silent. But nonetheless, there is support, and this is a community that currently just got taken by Republicans because of mistakes of the Democrats. But nonetheless, there was a high degree of unanimity. I thought that was an interesting comment itself on this divide and at the rank and file and leadership levels on this question.
The problem is that the country, as you pointed out, drowning and fragmenting and drowning in violence and the promotion of violence and the promotion of hate and the promotion, either consciously or by subterfuge, of drugs and the fight over drug profits and the lack of jobs and when that happens, we start to feed upon each other. I remember back in the day, back in the 60s, all of you will remember this. If you had any familiarity at all with African American culture and the group Funkadelic. Remember Funkadelic, Eric?
Oh,
Remember
yeah.
Funkadelic, Anita, John Case?
Mm-hmm.
They had an album, and the title of the album was America Eats Its Young. Hello. America eats its young. Send them off to war in other countries, and they get devoured. But they're also being devoured on the streets of America today. And I'm going to tell you, it's high time we do something about it. And I think it's going to take a social revolution to do it. It's going to take a social revolution to solve these problems. But that's not going to happen by just declaring it. It's not. We got to fight for democracy on the issues. And these reforms, these radical reforms around policing, around jobs, around healthcare, that's what's going to do it. And it's going to be the fight over the implementation of those reforms. That's going to be the deciding issue. That fight and the fight against violent attempts to suppress it. That's going to be the heart of the matter. And not only are they killing our youth, they're exploiting them. Child labor. I thought we outlawed that at the end of the 19th, beginning of the 20th century with the fight over the 8-hour day. We're going to be celebrating May Day next week. What the hell happened, Anita?
I looked up Frances Perkins today. I think we need a new Frances Perkins. She was the labor secretary under, I guess, Franklin Roosevelt, but she was the one who was really instrumental in the early child labor laws that were introduced in the progressive era. It's just there's rollbacks in every area where well we have hundreds of thousands of underage farm workers who are immigrants from Mexico and from Central America working in our fields. Plus, states are facing labor shortages and reducing age limits for employment. So it's children are losing rights, just like women are losing rights, and others are as well. So it's a dangerous situation. Personally, I had a homeschooling person. I was acquainted with a woman who was so-called homeschooling her child and actually bringing this child along with her to clean houses. And that was, I guess, her way of educating him. So I think there's a lot of exploitation by families and by strangers and by child traffickers and the worst capitalists that are out there.
Eric, in Iowa, what kind of state is Iowa? Corn state? Hog state? I forget what the major. They want 6 hours for children 16 years old and below, which is almost like an 8 hour day. And even when you're in school, you should work until 9 o'clock in the evening. You're not gonna get home till 10 or 11. You know, kids, man, they need their 8 hours. 10. Sarah Huckabee and the rest of those and her right wing daddy, uh, and I think the daddy's running for president, ain't he?
Yeah, he
Uh,
is.
Oh
huh?
no.
And fruit don't fall far from the tree. Eric, eh, what the hell is going on in America where you can overcome with the stroke of a pen a century of progress in eliminating child labor? It
Well,
must.
you're asking a really important question, and it's so much broader than child labor. The With a stroke of a pen, all the civil rights wins, including affirmative action, including, as was mentioned, abortion rights and women's health, privacy, all these things are being rolled back by either the Supreme Court or by Republican actions at the state level. As we see with the people in DC, even local struggles where you win are being rolled back by higher bodies in very undemocratic ways. So the fact that we do not protect our children, the fact that we do not build a society that is concerned with the well-being, the health, and healthy development, physically and intellectually, of our children, is part and parcel of a society that is determined that everybody should be a commodity, and that our labor is all that matters, in terms of the economy and in terms of recognizing us as human beings. There is no recognition in this society of the fullness of humanity, including of our children. So um, I have to say that this is a situation, from my view, that we're seeing the legal structures under, and I will put it like this: we're seeing the legal structures under capitalism being manipulated to reinforce exploitation at all levels, and especially the exploitation of children who are super exploited. And it is a nightmare. And I think that it, the social revolution that you're talking about, Joe, includes an economic revolution that has to happen. Between now and then, we have to insist on laws that protect children, and it's a workers' issue too. These are people these children are not being paid what they should be paid. Adults should have whatever the jobs are. Adults should have them, and they should be making union wages.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a thing as a youth subminimum wage. And then if you're in John Case, if you're in the quote unquote main or real economy, they have two-tier wages, which is going to be a big issue in the upcoming auto negotiations. And as
Mm-hmm.
Anita pointed out, many of these children who are being exploited are migrant children, people of color from Latin America, Central America, Mexico. And they've been doing it for a long time. It ain't nothing new. Sometimes they act like they're discovering something new. But Cesar Chavez and them pointed that out a long time ago. That's why Farm Workers Union was founded. And John, is America becoming a third world country? There's so many regressive. It's not all regressive. I don't want to give the wrong impression. There are progressive things happening as well, like in the state of Michigan, where we got rid of the right to work law in Michigan. You got rid of uh, uh, upheld abortion rights there, and so on and so forth. So there are, and we could go on and give other examples. But is America becoming a third world country?
Well, no, but the third world is moving here and has moved here, and now it's kind of both third and most people move here because U.S. imperialism, or basically created more failed states than saved states. And when failed states fail, where do people go? Well, you ruined it. Why don't we go there? Um, so I think that's. Plus, there's a labor shortage, and so you can see how capital will, go into the limits. I mean, if we have to have children to fill the deal, we'll go get children. And if there's a big uproar about immigration because the Biden administration wants to build up nationalism so it can maintain its world position via domination, well, okay, you're going to have illegal, labor practices exacerbate. And ever since the pandemic, the frontline workers, it's unbelievable what's going on with them. You see the class struggle in big ways emerging, even in places where it is very difficult, like Starbucks, 9,000 different places, right? And but you see big momentum that's overcoming even those kinds of distributive and other kinds of barriers erected against unionization. So I think we're going to see a huge upsurge continue. I don't see any change in it at all. I think it's searching for right political forums to form alliances. That's why I'm so impressed with Michigan. I mean, not so much with the labor movement, because the labor movement everywhere is trying to get rid of right to work, if they can do it. But there, somehow, a coalition of people that have to include a lot of people that were not labor, voted to go along and reverse it. So that might be worth studying, the nature of that coalition, to see if that could be that has some legs someplace.
Michigan is important. Georgia is important. I think Wisconsin's going to become important. Hello, Anita. Ohio needs to take a look. Get
That's
on the
right. We're
progress
studying.
train. Get on the soul train because Indiana too, Eric. It's a hard road to hoe. But the important thing is that it can be hoed, and new pavement can be laid on the way to addressing some of these issues. But it's going to take a fight. It's going to take a struggle. Because as the great Douglas said, power concedes nothing, nada, without demand, pressure. That's what the lesson of what happened in D.C. with Mr. Biden flipping and flopping and got a little spine pushed by the people. Let's deal with our mailbag now. We have a question about the party and its symbolism. So the writer wants to know, what is the history of the hammer, the sickle, and the gear? How many logos has the CPUSA been through? And what did they look like? Now, we got people here in this session today who've been in the party 30, 40, 50 years. So anybody want to take a shot? I remember one with that had an atom in it, you know, and
Yeah.
and then that was anybody. You remember that one, Anita?
I do remember that the atom vaguely, and I think some of our clubs have taken the symbol that we do have now, although I don't know very much about the specific history of it, and they've turned it for themselves. For example, Dayton, Ohio is called Gem City, and they've put a little gem, cut gem in the center of it. But I know we also are trying to strive for some kind of uniformity in the way we present ourselves. So I think uh, I, I like the hammer and sickle just the way we have it. I don't know how long it's been. I really don't know the history. Sadly I can't answer this question, but I think it represents unity. It represents farm work, industrial work, and I think it suits us here in the United States.
Well, Adam gone. They replaced it with a gem, and was it Dayton? Are you going to replace it
Yeah.
with a Buckeye in Ohio? Put a Buckeye? No.
No, I don't think so.
Well, it's not that. Doesn't have the same aesthetic quality as a gem.
Also looks too
Um,
much like a marijuana leaf. So,
oh, okay. Well, I
yeah, I
mean,
would
some
get
people will
confused.
appreciate that. Eric,
But
do you
maybe not
have any
enough.
recollection of the party symbols?
I actually uh, don't have a good sense of the history of the party symbols. We have a similar kind of situation here where the clubs, as they come into formation, are really liking to add their own little touch to the party symbol. So what they do here, what they've done here is put the party symbol into the center of the Indiana state map. Um,
Mm.
though I think a sycamore tree might be appropriate, because the sycamore is the tree of Indiana. But no, I don't really, I didn't follow really the history of our symbol. I like it. I think it represents the unity that we're trying to build, and yeah, I think it's a good symbol.
Okay, John Case, any recollection of that history? You've been around for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I remember we had the nuclear symbol because we were trying to add power to the symbol, I think. But then nuclear waste became such a big issue. I think we had to get rid of that one. And then, I mean, I think it ought to, if all the symbols are trying to represent, the unity of a different class and social forces. I think the one that we got right there now, I'm not sure the gear. It's a gear. Well, you probably should include something that kind of represents service and or mental and manual labor. I don't know what that would be, but you could have more than one symbol. Why? I don't see why it has to be just one. But
Yeah,
maybe.
good point. I mean, the party in Venezuela, they have the hammer representing the workers and the sickle representing those who labor on the land.
Yeah.
Um, that's one. Then they have a rooster,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
and the yeah, that's their thing. And then in Venezuela, I'm sorry, in where am I thinking? In the Czech Republic, cherries. They use cherries. Cherry is
Right.
their symbol. And I think in Cyprus, the Akel, the party there, I think that they have some kind of tree, uh, as I recall. But generally, the hammer and the sickle is, more or less for most of the parties
Right.
associated with their uh, symbolism. And symbolism is really important because of what you're trying to represent. And it's really a difficult thing to develop and change because it kind of goes to the heart of what we are, and it kind of reflects the pressures from the left and from the right, and so on and so forth. I remember the French Party a couple of years ago. They don't use the hammer and sickle anymore, and they kind of still use the red and the star, but they also use the colors of the European Union. And well, that's their thing. They'll do what they think is best. But for us, we want to maintain the unity of people who work for a living, people who from the country who farm. Don't want to disrespect any of that, but there are new things that are happening. And one issue is how you might reflect on that with respect to symbolism. Of course, one of those big things is the growth of, how do you call it? The internet and digital labor and the networks and so on and
Right.
so forth, and how to symbolize that might be something that, thought workers and so on and so forth, might be something we might want to explore, but not today, and maybe
Right.
not tomorrow, but certainly it's something that conceivably could be on our agenda. Well, thank you, everybody, for showing up. Thank you, Eric, for taking time out of your day. Thank you, John Case, for taking time out of your day. Thank you, Anita, as always. Until next week, stay strong, stay safe, stay in the fight. And May Day is deadline day for the PW Fund Drive. We got to reach 125 grand by then.
We will.
We will,
Yeah.
because of you, because of our readers and supporters. Nobody else. No money from Elon Musk, no money from Jeff Bezos, no money from Chase Manhattan Bank, but only and mainly from the working and oppressed people of this country. We're your voice. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.